We'll begin today's walk not too far away from where we ended part 4, just east of the Miyako Bridge. And like last time, even though I list Fukutomicho in the title of the video, we're beginning in a completely different area. This is Yoshidamachi, which is just north of Fukutomicho. When I was initially mapping things out, it kind of lumped everything together and there was an outline around both of these areas. But if you were to type in Fukutomicho into Google Maps, it would show the boundary lines start a little bit south towards the park that we'll wrap back around to later on. However, once I got here, I started to see that maybe I wasn't too far off, because this already starts to look like the northern boundary of Koreatown as you start to see it in-game. There's no drugstore there, but some of the apartment buildings, including the one down here on the right-hand side with the darker entryway, the glossy entryway, it'll start to look pretty similar. If you were to keep going straight ahead, we won't be going there. We'll be taking a right here momentarily. It does start to look a little bit similar, and it all kind of starts to line up a bit later on. The biggest difference is this island over here on the left-hand side that separates this inlet street and the apartments from Yokohama Tours, the big main street out there that cuts through these areas, as well as when you go into Kannai Station or Jinnai Station in the north. You can divert over here into a different, smaller street. Not sure what's here in real life. There's a restaurant there in-game, but you could keep going that way. We're going to head down this way here. In-game, it'll run into that building and then force you to go right back towards the park that's there. But in a moment here, we'll take a left-hand turn at the first street and start heading east towards where it will start turning into Fukutomicho. Going along this street in hindsight, it doesn't match up with anything. You're going to see that right away. As I mentioned just a moment ago, if you were to keep going along where we were and go down that little side street and not make the right-hand turn, it does match up a little bit better to the in-game footage, but I didn't shoot anything there in real life. For me, seeing all these mixed-use buildings is pretty interesting. You won't really see it on the left-hand side here, but all the stuff over here on the right-hand side, it's all mixed use. It looks a little bit old, a little bit run down. Maybe the ones directly up ahead on the right-hand side are a little bit more run down. At first I was like, oh hey, this might be something when you see the Geomijul Stronghold with how run down that looks. But obviously it looks worse later on in game, at least in Yakuza Like a Dragon. That all is blocked off in Lost Judgment. I was like, oh hey, this kind of captures that, but no, we'll see some more stuff later on there. But we'll be cutting ahead, going past all of this stuff. We'll jump up to the red building there, and then we'll be making another right-hand turn once we get down to a big mural. You can see the in-game footage was catching up to where I think is a restroom in-game. That's going to be a police box once we get a little bit further up. You can see the mural already. I thought this was pretty neat, and it was a nice, quiet enough street. And once you get down here, this would be about the point where if you had stayed over towards Yokohama Tours, where everything starts to kind of come together. You keep going east, you'll end up running into Isezaki Mall in real life and Isezaki Road in game, so it all kind of starts to meld together again. That's a really cool mural. I'm not sure who did it, and I'm not sure the name of it, so if anybody wants to leave that down below, I'd really appreciate that information. Again, that's a restroom in game, it's a police box in real life, and as we start to head south, that's when we'll start entering into Fukutomicho. I think once we get past this building here that says I Star Yokohama. This I actually had a little bit more as we start to walk down the street, but as you can see on the right-hand side, it's actually the same way in-game. If you look at it there's just nothing but construction, so we'll skip all the way past that. Plus the street itself is a good bit longer. Yagami will reach the entryway into the main street of Fukutomicho well before we'll ever hit it if we kept everything else there, but you can start to see it show up right now. And that's where things really start to finally match up a little bit better. It's another overcast day. I don't remember if I filmed this all on the same day as Nogecho, but it had to be relatively close to that. We'll jump ahead a little bit over to a side alley, just a little bit further south. You can see the sign there. In-game, this is a place called Hotel Bunnies. You can't go into it, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong. This was something I had no awareness of until I got into the area. And I realized, oh, They covered that building too. Okay. I don't know how many moments like that I've had over the years as I've started to do comparisons, but yeah, you can see just a little bit ahead of us. That's looking back towards the north. We jump past that. We'll be back up there in a moment. We'll cross the street here and turn back around. This is yet another love hotel called Hotel Funnies. It has that little statue in the corner there, that little inset portion of the facade. The signage there. The font's a little bit different, but my goodness. I don't know why they would choose to put that much work into something this odd, but why not? Space which spends time comfortably and can relax. I provide you with it. All right, that's pretty good. Leave the in-game text on the screen there, but we'll turn back around. We'll find ourselves back at the entryway sign for both areas and begin our walk through Fukutomicho proper. And we'll start a little bit of a history lesson too. The area's history dates back to about 1870 with its existence as a commercial district beginning in 1928. During World War II, the entire area was destroyed and then used by Allied occupation forces during its occupation of Japan. Up until 1952, until the occupation ended, that really limited what the area could develop into, but after that point, and by about 1966, it was an established restaurant and entertainment district. And around that time, I'll have to put the term up on screen what they use on Japanese Wikipedia, but the translation comes across as exclusion zone. But around that time, there was a proliferation of Turkish baths, which we now know as soaplands, that started to turn this into, of course, a red light district. You'd still have the restaurants, you still have other entertainment options, but it started becoming known as a big hub for the sex industry in the area. That also seems to be much of a running theme. A lot of the areas we run into in the Like a Dragon series run into that, but that's also where you're going to see quite a bit of unsavory characters. You're going to see organized crime go into there. By around the late 1980s, as older businesses started to close up shop, there was no one taking over those spaces or continuing those businesses. More Korean-run businesses had started to move into Fukutomicho, and that's what gave it the identity later on as a Koreatown. Although I'd say the biggest one now within Kanagawa or Tokyo would be in Shin-Okubo, which is just north of Kabukicho. Maybe one day they'll add that into a district or something you can walk over and see from Kamurocho and later Like a Dragon games. I would hope so. That'd be one way of being able to add Don Quixote back into the area without having to change that police station back around. And as we come up onto this building here off to the right, that will look relatively familiar. This is the spot. This is called the GM building in real life, but I love the name for it in-game. It's called The Building, just big capital letters, THE. This is where the Sujimon professor is at. This is where Citron Mahjong is at as well, down in the basement level. In Lost Judgment, as well as here in real life, it is completely blocked off, so unfortunately, I'm not able to give you a good view of the interior of the building. Based on the information I was able to find, it looks like the GM building was built sometime in the 1960s or 1970s. Looking at some of those photos that are included in the articles I'll list down in the description below, it looks like it's more probably in the 1960s. It feels older. And from Google Street View, it looks like the GM building was blocked off around 2021. And from what we see when we get back outside here, it doesn't look like it's been completely closed down. You can see the opening when we pan back down. There is a doorway there that normally has been closed, but it looks like there was people coming in and out. So it looks like they're doing a massive renovation project, hopefully. So maybe one day this will be reopened to the public and let people be able to check out the interior. And one quick thing to mention, the outsides of these buildings are very similar. However, they are swapped. The east side of the GM building is what you would see on the west side of the building, and vice versa. We're looking west this way, and then we'll take a right and look north again and head down this street here. Geographically, this is in-game where the Geomijul Stronghold is. Obviously, that doesn't exist here in real life. There's no underground gangs with very closed-off spaces or anything like that. So it's not going to look terribly similar, but as we start to walk through here, you kind of see that the layout does match it a little bit. As you look towards there, it's a little bit more cut off. There's a building in the way that forces a right-hand turn there in-game, but there's the parking lot here. There's nobody waiting for us to hire for Ichiban confections here in real life. We'll do a little jig jog as we get over to this street here, but we will cut over to a different area back over near the GM building. You can see the backside of one of the main buildings that's facing over into the main street there. And this would be what I would think is the closest thing you're going to find to the Stronghold, is this backside of the buildings here. So you can see some of the businesses that would be down on the ground level, and you can see the apartments up there, the wiring and the ductwork and everything else. I was trying to be careful because this is a parking lot here. I think it's a paid parking lot, but that's really, I think, the closest thing you'll actually find there in Fukutomicho that would match that. Because everything else, you'll see, even though some of it is a little bit old, nothing's anywhere near as run down. I imagine this place is probably pretty rough and tumble at certain points in time during the nighttime hours, but during the daytime, much like with Nogecho, there's nothing going on. Most of the businesses are closed, and you'll just find a lot of people that are walking to and fro, getting to other places. They might live nearby if they have an apartment or anything. It's all closed off there in-game as well. We start to head south and go back to the main street. We'll make a right-hand turn right where you see the building with the blue and white paint job there and the blue awning. And we'll start heading west again. You can actually see one of the places we saw during part 4 across the street here. These are not super busy streets, but unlike in-game, you will get a lot of traffic driving through here, and the streets at least are roughly big enough for two-way traffic. It's not like with some of the alleyways you'll run into. I'll pan around here real quick to give you a shot. Actually, the direction we're going to be looking in here past this big building here, maybe around the beginning of 2023, there was a McDonald's commercial for Chicken McNuggets. But with the research I had been doing at that time, I recognized the street immediately, which was kind of strange. That's actually something that happens a lot now. I'll see somebody else's videos, or I'll see something posted and I'll go, where is that? Why does that look familiar? I'll take a quick look and go, oh yeah, no, I know where that's at. It makes me feel a little odd, but it also proves that my memory's at least still working, so that's good. I mentioned you can see the bar district, Nogecho, right across the street. Now this block here, in-game it's quite small. There's nothing really important. It's maybe about, I don't know, about 5 or 6 buildings in-game, but it's double that here in real life. It's mostly just love hotels, as you would see everywhere else around here, and some restaurants and bars and whatnot. What you can see in the in-game footage down there, the Shinsenkan, that we'll see something similar to that over on the other side as we take a walk around. The footage we'll cut out here. Again, nothing really too interesting to show here in the in-game footage, but since there is at least something here in real life, it was worth taking a look at. As we get down to the corner, there's a British pub here. The sign out front calls it the Full Monty. I'm wondering if it dates from around the time that movie came out, or they just figured, you know what, that's a name people might know. I wonder if that movie got a release over in Japan. I'm assuming it did. It was a pretty big hit. We'll jump just a little bit ahead to the other corner. There's a street over there. There's the other side of the Full Monty there, and we'll head back up north, going back towards the main street. We'll jump around a little bit. Again, Yagami ends up reaching the end of this section well before we'll ever reach it. There's a Bacchus there. What do you know? It's not the same one. Neat to see it, though. Where's Bantam? Never did see one of those either, but there's a lot of bars in Kabukicho. Maybe one of them was called that at one time. Head quickly past this parking lot. Look back over here, and there's a hotel there. I think that almost looks like a Airbnb style hotel. But as I mentioned, Shinsenkan over on the other side in Ijincho, this place. I think it's Freshunamise. I thought that character at the end was 10, but I believe this is again a soap land. But why they would go through the trouble of making that into something here in game, I don't know. It's all speculation. Brings to mind that maybe the developers love going to soaplands. They're only human, you know. Can't judge them too much. We're heading back up here to the main street. Once we get to the corner, we'll hop across the street and we'll be heading back over towards our final destination for this video. We'll jump ahead a little bit here and get us a bit closer. The in-game footage is going to cut off a little bit early, since the park that we reached there, Fukutoku Park, you can hit pretty quickly when you leave the main street there. As we come up on it, you'll see actually a parking garage. I think it's an underground parking garage, one of those ones that you can park your car into and it actually lowers it into like an underground space. But unlike an in-game, this is a pretty big spot. It's mostly up on the top of the garage there. You can see the stairwell there as we pass by. We'll just do a little roundabout here of the entire spot and show off some other stuff. In-game, there's like a swing set and that mound there, and it's mostly covered in booze bottles. Maybe not the safest place for it, but it's another hallmark of the series. Putting parks in places where you probably shouldn't have a kids park. We'll look down towards Noraneko-dori, the northern boundary of Fukutomicho. There's one of the other murals I was talking about earlier. Again, a really nice one, a great way to make the area stand out a bit, give it some color. Always like when I can see those. We have some here in Las Vegas as well, in the downtown area, and it's something that kind of livens up parts of the neighborhoods around there. Which is kind of odd to say when you think about it, with all the neon and LED signs that are around there, but I think I'd rather see large murals than some of the gaudy lighting that are down there, but I'm also a little bit jaded just having lived here for so long. We'll take a look over here to the right and see the rest of the park. Yeah, big open area here where you can maybe have a picnic. I don't know if there's grass there normally, but you can play a lot of different stuff, you know, kickball or baseball or anything else around there, as long as it's something that's not going to break any windows. And then the majority of the park, as I mentioned earlier, is up here on top. You got to take the stairs. Kind of neat though. It's too bad that the slides aren't continuous slides that take you all the way from the top down to ground level, but that might be a little bit too dangerous. As we get further up here, the game footage will fade back in. And again, you can see how different everything is. As we reach the top here, that'll be the end of our walk today. I want to thank you for joining me. If you have any questions, please leave them down in the comments section below. I'd love to hear from you. But until next time, we'll see you again soon as we continue to explore around Yokohama. Join us next time for part 6 as we explore around Chojimachi and some of the surrounding areas.